All right. Hey, Bighead. Oh, I wasn't talking to y'all. All right, y'all. We have done a whole day full of everything from mindful meditation, bringing the kids in, checking chakras, talking about why we need to go to therapy is Melanin Minds, what to know, what to ask. We've had people in the audience, like here in person in Houston, right? We've had people virtually all the way from the Bahamas, California, Florida. Our speakers are showing up and showing out. And we are ending the day with Hey Bighead, an Ask Me Anything panel, all centered and focused around mindful dating and relationships. Because this is the final panel and we are all here in person, we're just gonna like do a round table. We have the questions that were directly asked from all of you when you purchased your tickets and got your tickets on Eventbrite. So thank you. We looked through them and we had a chat. We were like, okay, damn, this is gonna be for real. So we're just gonna go around, introduce ourselves real quick. Again, y'all know my name is LaGina. I am the founder of the US Space, which is intentional space for women to create, collaborate, and build community right here in Houston, Texas. We just signed for our first physical location and we signed with the Cannon. The Cannon is housing the US Space until we fully fund our first physical space in the 3rd ward of Houston. Why? Communities of color. Why? Because communities of color have money, entrepreneurs, women of color that are leading, and we shouldn't have to leave our communities to get quality resources, to do what we need to do to get what we got to get what we need to do to get what we got to go and do what we need to do to get it. All that, right? All of that. So that's me.
Yes, my name is Deniz Lopez. I am the co-founder of All Real Radio, and I'm also a poet here in Houston and do a whole lot of other things and really just work to create spaces that are safe in all facets.
And Denise is my co-moderator today. So we're moderating and our 2 panelists right here. Hello, Jasmine.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I am a therapist here in Texas. I work in private practice and I also work as a school-based mental health counselor. I have an Instagram called empower.co where I also create a space to talk about mental health and it not be so stigmatized and where you talk about real stories and as women we need this space. So I'm always open to talking about mental health, maternity mental health, which I'm glad that I listened to the last portion. So just having that space here for women.
I'm Jen, owner and founder of JENuine Nutrition, which is a holistic nutrition and wellness company that helps busy men and women naturally reduce their stress, balance their hormones, and lose weight through nutrition, psychology, and behavioral sciences. Yeah, so I love what I do because you are what you eat, and what you eat affects your mental health and well-being. So it's really important that you take better care of your health in that regard as well, because it affects your health and your mentality.
I love that. So there's levels to this shit because we were on Thursday night.
Oh yeah.
And so this is a continuation of the conversation and we're bringing in a whole expert, right? Because Jasmine also didn't tell you that like sex therapy, right? Yeah, sex therapy's up in there.
Yeah, I have a background in sex therapy because I think it's important for us to have the knowledge. And I tell people all the time, I didn't have the sex story or the sex talk when I was a kid. And so I learned the hard way. So I don't feel like we all should have to go through that. And especially when we have education behind it, expertise, and just having that open space that we don't always get. So yeah, sex.
I love that. So, hey, Bighead, ask me anything. We have our moderator questions right here. Y'all have read some of them, and we have answers. And Jen's job this whole time is going to be tying in nutrition into this because it's mindful, it's holistic. This is how we're showing up to understand relationships and everything with our mental health all the way around 360 degrees. Yeah. 365 is the days.
Oh, that's right.
360 is the circle. That's why they're the professionals. Okay, so we're gonna just jump right in. How can you help us identify red flags in dating when we actually ask all the possible questions to avoid all the drama and the manipulation?
That's the one that I stayed on for a while.
I skipped it.
Well, I think it's, why is everyone looking at me? I think it's not only physically that you can see the red flags, but your gut does not lie, your intuition. And that's what I teach with my clients as well. It's intuitive, intentional nutrition. And the same thing goes as for, red flags with anybody or anything. So yes, you're asking the questions, but also use your eyes as well and your gut to see their actions, because if their actions doesn't match up with their words, then that, yeah.
This is a good question. And she asked it whoever asked it very interestingly. You already saw the red flags, so there's no need to ask questions.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we done? I'm leaving. I'm like, okay.
And a lot of the times we try to convince ourselves that, oh, this red flag is not that bad. Or red flags are not common either. It could be different with a lot of different people. So I think when you notice something that doesn't sit right with your spirit and your intuition, move around, sis.
Yeah. And just like Maya Angelou says, or whoever, I think it was Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
The first time.
The first time.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
The first time. Cause I'm like, yeah, I believe it after like the 8th time. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you did. Okay, you did. Okay, you still did that. Okay, you're still doing that. Okay, so I'm gonna add to that question. I'm gonna level this question up like Sierra would do, level up. What if you only see red flags?
Well, and what do you think?
Yeah.
Not with one person, but like just continuously dating, being out there in the world, the apps, all that.
I think that is a internal.
That's exactly what I was
Okay. Also, I want people to understand the difference between someone processing maybe trauma or past relationships versus red flags. Because if you don't communicate well, someone else communicating very well could be a red flag for you, but you're not at a place where you should be. So if you're always seeing red flags, if you're always seeing negative things with other people, it's time to do some internal self-work, because that is what you're projecting out on others. So.
Yeah, can I say something too about this? This is why I stayed on it for so long, because the way that the person asked the question. And I think if with any relationship, it's really important to be clear. So if you were communicating and you cannot, that's really the only thing you can control, is you can't control how a person responds, reacts to your communication. And so you can only be accountable to that. Like, I've communicated that these are triggers or these are red flags for me. And if you're constantly still feeling that, then you probably need to move around.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does everybody out there feel about that? That was a really good question to start off with. Yeah. Oh, we have somebody out in the audience. Yes, sir.
So you said you consistently see red flags. What if it's different stuff, like this person is this person's that, is still internal?
It's definitely a moment to reflect on self, because like a lot of people think that if you have a trigger and you address it, it's gone. Triggers are constant. We can't control that. It's how we respond. So the trigger might be someone abandonment. Abandonment shows up very differently. It might be you not answering your phone one day, or it might be another partner ignoring a response in a really intense conversation. So it might be the root of it might be the same thing, but it's going to show up differently in different people.
I would follow. Could it be the setting? So like for me, I tried to do like the apps, and it was just like, nope. I found myself just swiping left, and then my best friend, he swipes right on everything. And his logic was that way, whoever I want, I get to pick and choose. Like he just kind of reversed it, but I was so analytical, like reading profiles, like, nah, I'm cool, no, I'm cool. So is it still the same if it's the setting, or is it across the board?
You really can't identify red flags on a dating app because we don't show up authentically. We show up with filters and a nice tagline to get someone to like our profile. That's maybe 10% of who I am if I'm on a dating app. So.
And from a dating app expert, if y'all listen to Lorraine Infinity Let's Talk podcast, I have about 3 or 4 episodes specifically related to dating apps. And a lot of people don't know, if you're getting out there in the dating app world, or you've thought about it, you're scared of it, or maybe you just like broke up with somebody and you're new into that world, don't be scared. It's very interesting. Don't take it too much to heart. And also, if you swipe right too much, they turn you off for a day, you know, like it's time. Because I tried that concept. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do like dudes. I'm gonna do like swipe. And I was saying yes to everybody. It's like, look, you reached your max amount of likes for this. And yeah, but you can swipe left all you want. So I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
I was just wondering, how do you define red flags? So we all say there's a red flag.
I think the red flags are different for everybody.
They are, yeah. I think they're to each its own. But I feel like there is a collective, there's a collective of red flags as well. Like if you're verbally or physically abusive, obviously that's a red flag. Or verbally, because a lot of people like overlook verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is just as, because that affects your mental.
It's detrimental.
Right, and that's gonna stay with you for a long time. So like maybe a bruise, that will heal, and even your mental wounds can heal, but it's a little bit longer. You know what I mean? But I think red flags, there's a collective of verbal and emotional abuse.
Yeah, how would, okay, I know you said it could be something internal, why you constantly secondly see these red flags. How would that be internal?
Well, can I answer it? Yeah. Well, I just think because it's not it's you are what you attract. You are what you attract. So if you are a toxic person, or if you have things buried and you haven't dealt with them, then you could be subconsciously attracting that to you. You know what I'm saying? So that's where she's saying the internal work has to be done. We all have internal work that we need to do. And unconsciously, we could be attracting people to us unknowingly because we haven't dealt with those traumas and all of those childhood traumas because you have been buried. So when you're attracting maybe your mother, you're attracting your father, you're attracting those characteristics that you hadn't dealt with.
And so there's no way to define it. It is about your intention. What are you looking for? If I'm looking for a committed relationship and the first time I'm meeting up with the person and they're saying, I don't want that, I want to date multiple people. If your intention is to be in a committed relationship, you saying that is a red flag for me. So it might be different for you. Like you go on a date and you want to have a halfway summer and the girl is like, oh, no, I want to settle down, I want to have kids. That essentially is a red flag because that's not what you're intentionally looking for. So it creates bigger problems, which if you continue to follow after that, that is the internal work that has to be done. Someone says something and you're like, oh, I'm gonna ignore it anyway. That's on you because some people, and I hate to say this because I believe all people are capable of change, but some people are red flags, like walking red flags. And it's because they don't do that self-work and it's all these relationships and you take that with you everywhere you go. So there's no, I wish there was a definition of red flag because it would solve a lot of my clients' problems, my problems. So yeah.
And it might segue into this question because we had somebody ask, how do I find someone I really want?
Have they found themselves?
Have they? Ooh, okay. And another thing that I've really started exploring is that the original things that I thought that I wanted aren't necessarily what I needed, especially as you find yourself and learn yourself. You realize that, you know, your dime over here that looks like what you think that you want. Right. Not even a penny, girl, like a peso. Like let's get for real. Like it can be pretty rough. And so maybe what you really need is what you need to figure out that you want.
That's one, because you can't, how are you gonna identify what it is if you don't know what it is? Yeah.
And doesn't it always change?
For sure. Yeah.
It changes daily. I tell clients all the time, you change daily. Your experience changes who you are as a person, and you experience something different every day. So one day you might want one thing, and then you're gonna have another experience, and you're like, well, no, and you get to do that. Like we're human, we get to change, we get to adapt. But if you can't sit with yourself, you really can't tell someone else what you want.
And I think one thing, like with the the apps, and I know there has to be a physical attraction to someone, but I feel like a lot of the apps, it's very superficial because you can't, of course you need to be physically attracted, but there's more to someone than appearance, right? And then you may be attracted to someone that's wasn't on your list or whatever because they make you laugh or they have passion or X, Y, and Z, right? So it's like getting to know like what things do you want on a not a surface level from someone, you know what I mean? Like that's how you find someone. So you don't just look at the external, like the tall, dark, handsome, and all of that stuff. Like, what are his characteristics, or what are her characteristics that you're looking for? That's not superficial. That is like a long time term relationship versus just a physical appearance. Now that's important, but I feel like for the most part, the apps, like that's just the main thing. It's like, okay, they're hot or I'm dating, but that's not long term. That's not sustainable.
And it's filtered.
Yeah.
You're about this filter. I don't put any filters on mine, y'all. I come with the bad photos, everything. Like, I just got a new phone, so I have better photos. Y'all about to upgrade. My man's waiting out there. I love it. Thank you. You know what? Here's a really good question that was asked. How do I get my other half to understand my emotions? Ooh, that's a challenge. Ooh, we have deep breaths. Deep breaths.
And I can only answer this because I had several clients today that we talk about acknowledgement and awareness. The only way someone else can understand your emotions is if you understand them and trust them. Because a lot of us have been told that emotions are not a weakness, or you display one emotion over the other. But if I'm not confident in what I'm experiencing, in my emotions, and able to process them, label them, sit with them, I can't help someone else understand. And it's not their responsibility either.
Okay,
And communicate them.
Communicate them.
Communicate.
Yeah, that's my next question. Jasmine, so you say that, but how? And then Jen, you're talking about communicate, but how do you verbalize once you understand? And so let's say I feel some type of way about this actually happened. There have been guys I've dated or talked to or been in relationships with or had cuddy buddies, and they always keep their phone face down, right? And I grew up around, my dad and have had men as best friends and all that, like the hoe bag men. Yes, I said it. I said hoe. And they told me, oh, I keep it down. So, when things pop up. So I'll ask them like, hey, why is your phone like that? Oh, you just trying to be nosy. And I'm like, no, that's not what it's about. I'm just asking a question. I'm one of those people that until I understand something, or I just ask to ask, I'm a curious person. And it gets taken offense, and then that's my red flag. And I'm like, oh, I can't ask you. But how do you verbalize your emotions as they come up like that without lashing out?
Say that you didn't describe the emotion it gave you. Instead, you just talked about the situation.
That's good.
So you could have said like, when you do that, or the background story, like, by the way, my father, by the way, men that I know, and that's why it makes me feel like maybe you're about to go on to the next thing, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I even sometimes feel like that's too much. In those moments, I feel insecure. That
Tell them that.
because that's what you asked, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think I asked because I was insecure. I really asked because I was curious. I'm like, I wonder, like the processes of people's brains always like fascinates me. So I more so wonder, like, why do you do that? Is it just habit? Do you not want your screen to crack? Are you actually like hiding something? Is it because the light bothers you? Does your phone go on silent when you flip it? That's how my brain works.
So that's not emotion, that's curiosity.
Right.
So if they're responding negatively to that, yes, that's a red flag. So but if you're leading with, I feel insecure, I feel, I don't feel important when you don't bring your whole self to our interaction. Or like I've had a past incident and
he had his phone down, so I'm just curious, like, why do you have your phone down? Like, kind of leading with that, letting them know. So it's not like accusatory, but it's like, I'm just asking because I've had a past situation and yeah.
we got you in the audience. I've also recently been accused of not being present. So like the flip side of it, like, hey, you're not present.
Who are you?
No, absolutely not. I just had to say that so I know, like I've been talking both sides and I'm flipping. Okay, I wasn't present, and therefore we are not talking anymore because he's like, you're full of shit. Okay, all right, in the audience.
I hope I can work this right. So like you said that, like when you tell them, can you say what you said the last part you said about when you tell somebody about the phone, like.
Oh, not being accusatory.
Yes, so what, I'm trying to work, I'm sorry, I had it.
That's okay.
Wait, come back to me. Give me
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay, 2
Right.
minutes. We have another question.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, like, how soon is too soon to ask this question?
I was gonna ask that too, because I was wondering, I was like, why is she even asking that right now?
But it's not even a secret though, right? Like if you're just a transparent person and maybe, people are like, LaGina, you're very on the very transparent side, right? And I have to be mindful of that even now because I'm just super comfortable with myself and I've worked very hard to always be like that. Even when I'm uncomfortable, I focus on being comfortable with it, whether it's just walking around naked after sex or it's, showing up and just being like, this is who I am, right? And I really do believe when you partner into a partnership or relationship, your flaws become power because y'all like fuse together and make stuff better when it's a positive relationship. So that's a really good question.
She has her.
Yeah, over here.
Before she forgets.
Okay, so I know you said when you ask somebody, like, well, when you're telling them, hey, my phone's down, or you ask the person why their phone's down, and then you say, well, I'm saying this because of my past relationship or from this, and then I tried that, and then I get the response of, why are you bringing that relationship over here? I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm trying to express myself so that, what I felt in that past relationship don't come. And then all of a sudden the guy's like, oh, that's a red flag because you doing this. And then I'm like, oh,
They are.
Yeah.
You, I'm gonna go, that's a red flag.
Because he's not communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like at some point in time, I've had it flipped to where I just let my phone, is how it falls, right? And so if it does that, and a guy stops me, it's like, oh, you got other guys calling your phone? I was like, what are you talking about? I'm Apple watching. If this thing dings, what's going on? So when that happened, I was just kind of like, what's the problem? So my ex, I'm like, I'm not your ex, so then I'm like, shit, I'm doing the same thing that but I don't want, it's like, how do you approach your feelings without saying your past has affected you to move on to the new relationship? Does that make sense?
It does, because you're talking about like bringing old relationships and new relationships and not being accused. Yeah.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah.
Bam, bam. Y'all, you see how we had to bring this at the very end? Because this is like, we're all like, okay.
I think it's more of the intention behind the question.
Yeah.
Why am I asking this? And then also if the response you're getting is very pushy or very controversial or kind of, what do they call it? Counter projection. Look at that. And I hope you're not in either of these relationships that you just experienced, but that is also a thing when I'm not ready to talk about my emotions, I'm gonna throw it back on you. I'm gonna make you think like you're exactly. I'm gonna make you think like you're the issue.
Narcissism.
Because there is nothing wrong with addressing your past relationships are a part of who you are.
Yeah.
They stick with us regardless of how much we try to sage them out. And if you're trying to be upfront and honest and open about something that is impacting you and you don't have the words, it's not okay for somebody to throw those back at you. Yeah. So even when you are in those situations, I use this myself. I don't have the words right now, but I will try to find them and I'll get back with you. Or, hey, not even looking at the behavior, but hey, this makes me feel. Taking the behavior out, because if someone comes back at you some type of way about your feelings, red flag.
Yep. Oh my gosh. That's gaslighting. That's happened to me, like, and that was the worst thing ever. So yeah, if you're opening up and they're not ready or know how to open up or communicate and gaslighting you, making it like it's your issue, run as fast as you can, like run, because part of a healthy relationship is communication. So if you're not able to hear, and it's not whining, it's not nagging, it's not anything, it's just stating, you know, so that's important to have that open dialogue and communication on both ends.
How soon is it to have open dialogue? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I would say immediate is okay.
Yeah.
Because if you know, I remember like being younger and it's like you have this 3-month window of like honeymooning and everything's wonderful. And then it's like, I feel comfortable enough now, I'm gonna start talking about things that I'm really about. And by that time, you are confused, they're confused,
It's
they're
like
no longer. You know, yeah,
I've been in a lot of situations. So then, because then to me, it's also a red flag when a guy's like, hi, my name's Tom, and my wife left me and kids, da, 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 oh my God.
but you want to know that too, right? Because you want to be able to show up with whatever your past was as well. And so like that over time, somebody would probably appreciate that about you. Or like people that are on these apps or that are dating a lot of people, how do you distinguish a person? Eventually it might be, she actually told me about her true self the first time I met her, and I can't remember any of these other conversations or situations.
I think I will contrast to that. I think that slow and steady wins the race. I'm not trying to leave a first date right.
Okay.
I'm saying too much
Yeah, like the information dump.
information.
Yeah.
But listen, I think it's like a cell. You don't overwhelm the client with all these benefits and this package deal and this trinket and this does A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Slowly ease the client in there. And for me personally, I think it depends on the appetite of the individual, the education. If someone was bringing all that information to me, I'm like, my God.
But I also, you're
This
looking
person
at
is you. When you see someone like that in the sales, you think desperate. You think, oh my God, let's take it slow. No.
you're also looking at a relationship like a business transaction.
Oh.
You should though.
You shouldn't. Business, they tell you to leave out emotion, right? They tell you to go in, go with logistics, get it done, secure it, catch the bag, whatever people say. Being honest upfront, and if you're feeling that someone is giving too much upfront, then that's a self-check. Because it's like, will you like this person once you find out that they may have been in an abusive relationship, that they may have 3 kids by 3 different people? Will you still like that person? Because they're going to tell you all of those things, and they're also going to tell you they love to read, they love to travel, they love to bake, they like long conversation. So you're going to get all of it, and it is healthier to get it up front.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you all my positives, that I'm this great person and I like to turn up and I'm educated and I'm a hot mom out here, and leave out the fact that I don't have a great relationship with my family or all these other things. So I understand what you're saying about it being too soon, but also taking the view of relationships are not a business transaction. That is where we have gone wrong for a very long time, because historically that is what they were done for. A business transaction, merging 2 families together for profit.
And I would say
But
one last
hold
thing.
on, hold on 1 second. And then when you're talking about transactions, we could take that back historically and talk about how transactions have typically been a woman as a piece of trade, a piece of property. And so there's even those things, just like Sierra was talking about and the panel before, where we're talking about healing generations and the generational healing, and how if you heal 1, it heals 7 before and 7 moving forward. And so when you're talking about the business transaction versus going in it with more heart, it's also about the vibe. Because there are some people that straight up have business transaction marriages right now, and they work beautifully because they walked into it with that same level of understanding. And so I think in those first couple dates, you're gonna have that vibe. You said it at the beginning about the gut, right? My sister calls it spidey sense. She's like, fuck the gut, it's spidey sense. It's a thing, it's magic, right? When you feel that, I know that, like, let's say we connect and we're like, okay, like there's a vibe here, like we're going deep with it. And then some people, it's like, we hit so hard on business, are we gonna be business partners, getting married to be billionaires? And that's fine too, but I think it's about having, I know, it's about having that conversation at the beginning and that vibe at the beginning. Because I'm gonna let you know, I'm like, look, I'm about to tell you everything about me, you just decide right now. Because I'm tired of it getting to know you in the 3 months into it, it gets on my nerves.
That's what I'm saying, because it well, not to, contradict your point, but it allows the other person to say, do I want to deal with this or not? Like, if you tell me what's up from the jump, then I'm like, okay, yeah, then don't make me wait a year. Don't make me wait a year or 3 months to decide if I want to deal with this individual. You know what I'm saying? So it gives the other person the ability to be like, I can invest in this, I choose to invest in this, or I don't want to invest in this.
That's a great segue into, and also, I really appreciate the male perspective, because what if that is the male perspective? Because we are a panel up here full of women, right? And so this is it, right? But this is powerful because this adds that extra to the conversation, and that's why I really like Let's Talk to Men About It, because it's hilarious. You get to hear from the guys, questions from men, and everything else. So maybe that is a male perspective, is like taking it. And so how do we add that communication in? And when we're talking about communication, one of our people asked about boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries. How do boundaries work in mindful relationships and dating? And can we do like a level 3 question? Can we make it a little bit more difficult? Okay, so with the boundaries, how do you go on dates and date people and hang out with people mindfully out in this world right now and keep nutrition in mind? Because I'm like, hey, let's go do I'm not gonna tell you how many shots because you're about to be my nutritionist and you may be my mental health expert. So we're gonna keep that off and sign some waivers and y'all can get going on it. But there's the party, there's the food, there's everything else. And people culturally, we connect over food. So I'm gonna throw this at you, Jen, and then we'll come back to Jasmine. But how do you connect and leave the boundaries in place and stay mindful with nutrition?
I think it's all about a respect thing. So whatever your partner is wanting to do, it's respect and then also support. So again, if you're choosing to be with someone, you're vibing, you're meshing and all of those kind of things, whether it be culturally, religion, whatever, if you choose to be with this person, you have to respect and support what they're doing, So from the nutrition point, so say for instance, if I'm dating someone or they don't eat X, Y, and Z, I have to support and respect that, and if not, then what am I doing? So it's like, and even when you're going out and about, eating out or events or whatever, for me, it just boils down to the respect and the support in regards to that. Because I'm not gonna, if my partner's, if he's on a fast or doing whatever, I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna be turning up, and I want to support him and what he's doing, and I hope he would support me, and that goes a long way, And so it's not just, you don't have, and you have to be in alignment too. So that's super important. So you don't want to deal with someone so say for instance, if you're all centered and balanced, like, I have to find someone in alignment with me. Like, I'm not gonna find the guy or want to be with the guy that's partying, drinking beers, out, till, whatever. I'm sorry, that's your, that's not me. So, I have to find someone that's in alignment with that, right?
Yeah.
Back to the question that we were talking about a couple of questions ago. It's about yourself. It's doing that self-work, self-reflection. And so that you can find someone who is, not a mirror, but someone who is complementary and all of that. That's in alignment with who you are as an individual. Yeah, because I'm not gonna be with somebody that's drinking. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. Like, I'm not be with somebody that's
I was having this conversation with a close girlfriend the other day about perspective and exposure. So when you have boundaries and you're entertaining other people or dating, perspective, where do you come from? what is your outlook on this healthy eating or how you live your life in exposure? Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so like let's try it. Because a lot of people will say, oh, I don't do that, like I'm not vegan, I don't have to do that. Have you ever been exposed to it? Do you want to try? Because dating does not have to look like what it has looked like traditionally. It could be, let's go sit by the water, like let's go try vegan restaurants. Me, I'm a meat eater, so if you want to do that, I'm gonna have to convince me a lot. But it's just about having that perspective of who you are, who's coming to this table, like you said, kind of self-reflective and respecting that other person's journey to where, like y'all met here. So I need to be able to have some type of perspective of what you're bringing, what I'm bringing, and be willing to expose yourself and that other person. And trying new things, you know, perspective and exposure.
A good question I think that came up too is how do you know when you're ready to date? How do you know it's time to date? And I don't know if that question was like a follow-up to like being in a relationship and then, trying to be like, did I heal? Did I do that? Or are you just, when do you know that you should date? Or
I feel like intuitively, I always go back to my intuition. Like I feel like intuitively know, like if you've done the work, right? So like Jasmine was saying, I'm a huge fan of doing the work. Like you can't just in anything in life, nutritionally, relationships, whatever, you can't get far if you don't do your self-work. Finances, like whatever, if you're not looking at yourself, you can't, go places. And so I'm just all about going with your intuition. And so if you've just got out of a relationship, I've had to do some healing myself, and I'm finally in a place where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get out here, right? The streets are calling. Okay, so I mean, I'm about the streets calling. But you intuitively know if you've done the work, the self-reflection and all of that. And then you also have to know too, are you jumping into a relationship because out of the emptiness, like the neediness. Like I saw on one of the commercials, like I don't watch a lot of TV, but there was, I had Hulu, but one of the Match commercials, this one girl said, well, I've started feeling lonely, so I hopped on Match. And I'm like, that's the worst time you want to like get in a relationship, right? Like a point of a relationship is not to fill a void, right? Like you don't want someone to complete you because no one can complete you. That's where the self-work comes in, So intuitively, when it's time, and it's not to feel like it's not, if you feel lonely, get a dog. Not you.
You get a turtle. I have a turtle. My turtle's great, y'all.
yeah, like we have friends that go right into relationships back to back. I'm always like, did you do the self-work? But I think one of the greatest things too is that when you actually like get knowledge of who you are as a person, I think that's like, because then somebody can't necessarily come in and like adjust your whole life around
your
them.
boundaries.
Right. Then you're able to be like, I actually have my own things going on and I can't do that. Or, I can add on to what you're doing in this way.
And that's part of knowing who you are and standing in those boundaries. My past relationship, like I thought I knew, and then when stuff happened, I was like, I got ran over, and I was like, wait, you ran me over. I was like, hold up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's part of knowing who you are and standing in that and being firm in that and those boundaries.
And another thing with boundaries that I'm growing to understand a lot every year. Like I need y'all to know if you're in your 20s that the 30s are even better. They're so much fun. I hit 30. I woke up. I was hungover, but I woke up and I was like, "This is amazing." And now I'm 36, and I'm really starting to understand that like boundaries as a single woman with no kids that has 3 or 4 businesses are what they are. And when the right person comes into your life, whether it is a friendship or a heteronormative relationship or anything else, a really good business opportunity, your boundaries shift. And it's okay not to be that really, really stubborn person and be like, this is who I am and I'm standing here and I only stand on the right side of everybody. But what if somebody else works really good on your right side and you have to shift your boundaries? So there's a difference between the person that runs over you and you feel emotionally and mentally like not clean after that, or the person that you're like, oh, that was good. And you talked about it when you said, the vegan, vegetarian and everything else, like I accidentally stopped eating beef, right? And that took me, and I still am like, yeah, I'm like, is there beef in it? And I'm like, I'm that person, right? Like I'm the person that has to do something with my diet. But the boundaries that I had are no longer there as the West Texas sweetheart that eats, you know, all the meat all the time. And it shifts. So I think that's something to also be mindful of. If it's something good, sometimes when your boundaries change, it expands your thought processes.
Yeah. Being flexible. But then I say not being flexible in who you are, if that's like, yeah. I mean, you can be flexible as we're growing, right? But I'm just saying like, yeah, so don't think.
Oh, look, that, okay, here's a question about flexibility maybe. And it's not a sex question, because I know y'all thought y'all were like, okay, here we go, LaGina, going to sex. I know that's what y'all were all thinking, but no, this is about exercise. No, we already gave a disclaimer. This is an adult, like, it is very important with Melanin Minds for us to not only do surface level, right? We have to go like deep on every level, whether it's with our kids or ourselves. And that includes like sexuality and sex and being safe in our practices, like just like what you said, Jasmine. But this question is about exercise. So what's an exercise you recommend for couples to go through or establish their mental health practices together? Like, what are some exercises that can be done with a couple that wants to work out together? Not every couple needs to work out together.
Oh, is that what they meant by
physically work out?
exercises? I thought it was like mental exercises.
Oh, I thought it was physical exercise. Like, I mean, okay. Yeah, level 3 questions again.
For the mental health one, I always, any couple, I still recommend individual therapy. You cannot sit in someone else's mental health space if yours is in shambles.
Oh, awesome.
Because it shows up on the couch in front of me when I see it. And I spend a lot of time bouncing back and forth. And it's like, hey, like you need to address this, and hey, like this is where it's coming from. So I love that they're trying to have mental health exercises together, but individual therapy first, because then you're able to go to couples and see it's not my personal issues, my individual issues that I'm bringing, it's a relational issue. And so then we can work on the relational issue, and I'm not bringing my abandonment issues or my communication issues to this space. And so in couples therapy, I send them home with all kinds of things. So talking sticks, intentional time together, which is very, it's not done. It's not surprised. I'm like, you want to spend time together? No, we're just in the same bed.
Yeah, we're busy.
No. So definitely the first step is to individual.
I love that you say you send people home with work to do. You said it. There's work to do, and I love that, because one of my clients, like, they're entrepreneurs together. Actually, Mary J, they don't mind me saying this. They're entrepreneurs together. They're working all the time. And when we're talking, I'm like, hey, y'all need to make sure you have a sacred day with at least 3 hours where you're not talking about work. And whatever you do, whether it's just like sit and Netflix and chill, or go walk around, you know, a lake, or do anything, but it's really important. Even with friends in business, Mel and I, with Melanin Minds, like, we're running whole businesses during the day. And then at night, literally, and my mother knows this, from like 9 o'clock at night, my time, to like 1, 2 in the morning, we're putting together this conference sometimes. And we literally take breaks where it's like, okay, girl, what you doing? And, you know, I tell her stories of my dating life, and she and, you know, she talks about everything she's doing.
Oh, I was sorry, you can finish. I was just gonna offer an exercise that I actually saw from the creative director of Black Love. What she did in her relationship was Thursdays is their day to check in and be like, how is our relationship going? And then what I've implemented in my relationship is that, and then a component of how are you doing? Because there's never always like a time to like sour mood or bring up anything you want to talk about, but those things still need to get talked about before they pile up. So that's just one exercise I wanted to.
And that's literally what I was gonna say, because I recommended that to my past relationship and he turned it down. So I feel like it was like the worst thing. I was like, hey, let's like sit down once a week and let's like check in. And he didn't see a point in it. And I was just like, okay, well,
I even sent a couple home today with the exercise of being present.
Yeah.
Be present. And they're like, wait, what? Like, how do we do that? It's like, I'm like, be present. Don't even take any of these things that I've said in the last months of your therapy with me. Be present. Don't expect a conversation to go a certain way. Just be present. Be there. And they're entrepreneurs. And I'm like, mess up, guys. And they're like, ugh.
Oh, I be messing up. I mess up. Like I mess up really good because that's the only way you can learn and move forward. And I always say fearlessly forward, but being present is so much more challenging than you would think it is, especially, we're all entrepreneurs. You are have your own practice. You hear that? You will. Yes, I love it. But the more I dive into entrepreneurship, the more I have to be present in my friendships, my family relationships, even with guys. Like I totally I'll be dating and I realize that, oh God, I don't know anything about him. And I swear I've asked the questions, but the questions are coming from autopilot from my podcast where I really tap in, or they're coming from when I'm talking to my members and I'm really tapped in. But when I'm home chilling, it's like I still have to be present. And then that goes back to mental health, because if I'm present all the time for everybody, and filling that cup.
Yeah, and I touch on that in my nutrition practice as well, because you have to be mindful when you're eating. So it's the mindful eating, like I say, live with intention, eat with intention, because if you're on autopilot, you're just literally eating, just eating. You're not conscious of your eating habits. So mindfulness plays in all aspects of our life, every aspect. Yeah, dating, eating, everything.
One thing I've done because of the busyness and the level of not being mindful, even when eating, I noticed that. So I keep healthier foods around me. So when I'm not being mindful eating, at least it's something healthy, right? Yeah, can I get a high five? Yes, I'm trying to get points before we sign a contract so she doesn't drop me soon. Okay, what's our next question? Let's see. Did we have a question over here? No, okay, we shifted.
I thought this was, well, are we going in order?
No,
Okay.
I'll be off-road.
I feel like we've touched on a lot, but maybe we need to talk about
This.
this. How can I be more intimate with my partner when physical touch does not come naturally to me?
Hello, world. Intimacy is not just physical touch. Yes.
Say it louder.
Say it louder.
Like for real.
Intimacy is not just physical touch. And it goes back to being comfortable with self. I cannot be in an intimate space with someone else if I am not intimate with myself. So understanding my dreams, understanding my goals, finding things that I love to do, walking around naked, learning new parts about myself. So understanding, and I know love language is a huge thing, but also we misinterpret that as well. Our love language is the way that we need to be loved, not how we give it. So when it comes to if physical touch is not something that relates to you, what else does? Because I know for me, if you're sitting on the couch with me watching documentaries, I am in love, because that is a personal time. Nobody likes documentaries, nobody likes weird stuff like that. So okay.
I do too.
But that is the most intimate space with me, because I am a mom, I have several jobs, and I do a lot of things. So if you can take the time to sit with me in a space where I don't have the words, that is intimacy to me. And it's all about communicating, because I didn't know that. I used to be like, oh, physical touch is 2% on my list. And it's I don't know how else, I don't know what else to do. And so it's about sitting with myself. It's what does Jasmine think? What feeds my soul? And so that is, how you can talk to a partner about hey, I know physical touch is your jam, but let's try this. And once you're comfortable in those spaces, physical touch is just a natural byproduct. Ooh, I feel safe. I feel safe with you. Intimacy is the translation of safety. I feel safe with you, so I want to drop my drawers, because that's what you want.
Intimacy is safety.
it's safety. If you don't make me feel safe, I don't want to be physical with you. I don't even want to talk to you. If you cannot search me and try to figure out what my soul needs at that moment, I don't want to be physical with you. I don't feel safe with you. I don't feel like when we talk about emotions, if someone says, oh, why are you crying so much? I now do not feel safe with you because I don't even know why I'm crying. But I just need you to be present with me. And so not judging, because sometimes there's no language for tears. That is the language. And so if you're coming at me and you're not making me feel safe or just being present, their intimacy cannot grow from that because it's now a foundation built off that's crumbling. So
That's,
I think, oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, it just makes me think about, you know, is that a learned process? Because I know for a fact, like being in relationships where if there wasn't physical touch or sex, then I feel like something was wrong anyway. And then the total opposite of being like, it was completely sexual and very little communication, and you feel like it's totally defeated.
And we talked about that a little bit on radio shows, like sex is not the only end all be all relationship. We actually need to get away from sex, honestly, and learn how, well, not away from it completely. Not away from it completely.
Okay.
Oh, you can have my nutrition. You can't have that.
Just not making it being the forefront of the relationship, right? There needs to be other layers of sexual layer because there needs to be the communication, the safety, the intimacy, and all of those kind of things. Because when you have all of those, the sex is freaking mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
When you have that type of connection, then the sexual, the intimate, that's when because when it's just surface level and when it's just focused on the sex, okay, yeah, like that's real, you know? Like it can't be just because that dies out.
And I work backwards with couples. They'll come in and say, we're not having sex. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Do you feel safe with this person? Oh yeah, not physical safety. Do you feel safe with this person? And one of the partners will be like, no. I said, well, how can you be intimate with someone you're not feeling safe then?
Did y'all practice? Like, cause y'all are finishing each other's sentences. I'm like, this is damn.
You need to show it.
Yes.
And so I work backwards, and in that point, I'm educating people on what safety is. The most basic need, safety, shelter.
Once safety is lost, can it be regained?
Yes, it can. And I know we are just taught in the community of color, like when somebody wrongs you, we're done. Because honestly, sometimes we don't even know what safety feels like in the first place. So something that someone does, like I said, might be a trigger for you, does not mean your safety is completely gone. It means that you have probably, and it's not everybody, properly addressed the trigger. So, yes.
Can I say something too, just about what was said a while ago about like being really transparent up front? And you said something about like women being treated like property. I think it's important as people of color to remember that men and women were all treated as property. And so a lot of the things that, you know, the ways that we survived was taking on a culture to us role of thinking over time that we've taken on. And so it's more in our nature to communicate or to accept people and want love and unconditional than what you might think what we're taught to feel or think is the right way. So it's important to like unlearn that. Why do our men now maybe treat us like, you know, property? It's a learned thing, I think, and it's part of like unlearning.
Yeah, I think it's if you look at it, because a lot of the conversations I've had with women, it's switched. Getting married to a man and having kids is now a transaction. It's like, I need that in order to solidify who I am. So versus like a man wanting, like, I have to have this family look, and this is what my people told me to do. Now women are like, well, no, I need to find somebody. You need to go to therapy first. And so now I'm seeing like what you're saying kind of makes sense about like both parties, like men and women, can be used as property. Because you want to have this look, you want to have this status, because, you know, we're looking at marriages nowadays as a popularity thing. And so a lot of women are now aiming like, oh, well, even though I can't even have a conversation with him or her, and he can't read, I'm still
Hashtag
married.
relationship goal. Right? Like the hashtag relationship goal thing
And
is going
to
on.
the point, like, I think for, you know, our community specifically, I think we need to be compassionate for each other.
Yep.
Like, we both genders
Yeah.
have dealt with so much trauma on the emotional end when it comes to our, you know, physical, emotional, mental abuse. And so we can't be too harsh on our partner. You have to be open and compassionate, right? You have to learn how to have that open dialogue, be emotionally available, right? So that you can be there for your partner and vice versa. So it's showing that compassion, because we're not against each other. When you're in a relationship, we're supposed to be a team. We're supposed to be a unit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't be fighting. Like, there's no competition, you know? So being compassionate for each other and learning that what my man is going through out there, but then also what my woman is dealing with as well, when she steps out into the field or steps out into what she's doing, that's really important to understand.
Yep. So we have a situation over here. So I'm dating someone with depression, and I'm trying to be patient. A lot of my needs are not being met. We're already passing it off. They know this question. They often come off as uncommitted, uninterested, and not making a lot of effort or making a little effort. They say that they're working it out, or they want to work it out. They believe that they're making the effort. How do I tell if this is an issue directly as a result of the depression, or if it's just because they actually don't want to do this? I don't want to miss out on the potential greatness of another person or a person, which is what I saw when we first started seeing each other. But I'm not sure how much more grace I can extend. Yeah, it's starting to hurt my confidence. It's starting to hurt my confidence.
You need to walk away.
Oh.
Um,
Want to say that again? Because I mean, I hope this person is watching.
And I say that because our mental health is very precious. And depression, of course, has been publicized as this thing. It's very glamorous now. But it's not the person. It's just something that they are struggling with. And there is no amount of grace that will help you deal with someone who is experiencing depression. And if you are not ready to take on that task, go let that person be with somebody else that is willing to work with them through that, but they have to work with it first. That's what I'm saying. It's not your job. Like, it's not your job to deal with that. Like, it's not your job to take that on.
Hands are coming up. Hands are
Yeah,
going
it's
up.
not your job. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's
have
not
to-
their job.
Yeah, it's not the job, but it's also like when we talk about partnership. I'm stepping into a partnership with you, and I don't come with the clearest past. And sometimes there will be depressive episodes, there will be conflict, there will be challenges. And so when I stepped into that partnership with you, I made a commitment to work through it with you, not for you, but with you. And so giving grace is working through something with somebody and understanding, but whoever it is, they also have to get a handle on what depression in their life looks like. Not managing it, because day to day is different. I've seen depression look very different for people. But if you are not in a space to take that on, if they are not in a space to take that on, y'all are going to be hitting a brick road. And I would hate for the person who is tired of giving grace to exacerbate the symptoms of that other person's depression, because that happens as well. And the person who is experiencing it might not be in a space where they even know, because we are told depression is sadness, crying, staying in bed all day, not wanting to shower, not wanting to eat. It's all of those things, but I don't even find joy in walking outside of my home. I don't even find joy in going to work or hugging my children, because there is a chemical imbalance in my body that impacts me doing so. So the conversation about giving grace, like, yeah, grace is needed. Prayer, everything else, because that is heavy. And if the person who is experiencing depression has not managed it, there's no way that you're gonna find enough grace for the both of y'all.
But I'll also say, make sure that person is getting professional help as well. Yeah.
So I had a question and comment. The comment about the race thing, I think because it's so, depression is such a buzzword now,
Yeah.
people also think it's fixable.
Yep.
Like, oh, you should snap out of this in the next month or two, like, you should be fine. And that's not always the case. And two, my question is, could your partner possibly add to your symptoms and what you're dealing with, not know that? Neither one of you.
Yes,
Not add to the symptoms, add to the impact of them.
Oh, and she's saying she's starting to not feel confident,
In
right?
herself.
yeah, she said
Yeah,
she's,
not
she's,
comfortable with
yeah.
herself.
Which is
starting to
only going
affect her.
to, so when someone is experiencing depression, one of the symptoms is hopelessness. So if my partner is showing up and saying, hey, I don't feel confident, that is impacting how big the scope of my hopelessness is. And we all know what that leads to, the words we never want to speak, suicide and self-harming behavior, even reckless behavior, drinking, not going to work on time, because that's a thing too. So it doesn't add to the symptoms, but it can magnify them. And so, and we're just not very educated on what depression looks like. There are depressive episodes. There's situational depression. There's someone who lives with depression for their entire lives, and there's some people who don't. Like, they'll experience it for 2 weeks and then you'll be done. They're seasonal. Yes.
I'm seasonal. I'm a seasonal depressive person. And you know what? And I'll say this, we see the question out there, but even coming out of the last year, I'm not gonna say coming out of COVID, because we all know that everything is super intense right now. I really hope the Olympics happen. But experiencing all that from March of 2020 all the way to about March of 2021. And around that time, I didn't even realize for like 3 months I was like depressed until I started seeing like a light, and I was like, oh, I'm depressed. I was actually in a Melanin Minds meeting with Mel, and she's like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not good. I'm not good. And I said it, and I even sat down and told my mom, I was like, I'm not good, right? And it was super dark. And even knowing that kind of stuff and being able to speak it and have people that you can say it to. And I'm all about, Chiquita said it in her room, that make people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when people ask you how you're doing, you don't always have to say, I'm good. I'm like, you know, today's been a shitty boo-boo day. Or I'll be like, today's a great day, the sun is shining. But, you know, there was like 3 or 4 weeks I told people, I just came out of a deep depression. It's the worst I've ever been in depression, didn't even know what's going on. Like, but I also, through that, have realized that, you know, I'm a Cancer, so it's a whole thing, right? Yeah, thank you, new therapist. But it's a whole thing, but I also have to realize that I operate well being depressed. I operate really well, like I perform.
You're functioning.
I'm functioning, and I'm highly functioning. And that can be dangerous too.
There, yeah.
And even realizing that, I'm like, well, shit. Like, even doing this entire conference and putting this conference together, I'm like, I need mental health experts around me more. And so I hope other people are getting this out of it, because it's not mental health. You're crazy. That's not what it is. We're humans. There are so many pieces to us that have to be put together, and why not have people help you do that? Because it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. I know we have audience member question.
Yeah, so, I read this book, right? I finished it, 2 weeks ago, called The Man God Has For You. Y'all read it? No? So it's about, there are like 7 traits, right? I only remember 2, because the ones that I was like, I'm gonna carry this out through my life, right, or relationships. And one of them is dealing with when somebody else is in the situation, and it's not our job to fix their situation. And a lot of people want to say, like, I'm gonna stick with them because, you know, once they come out of it, it's gonna be good, we're gonna be great. But then they stay in that situation for so long, and so we feel that we, and I say man and female, feel that they would have to pull that person up and be their, their backbone and be strong for them, stand in it. And really, it's not your time to be there. So then, I've gone through this where I'm saying, I'm gonna stick with this person for this long, we're gonna pull through it, and then we never do, and then 2 months later, I find somebody else and they get married. I'm like, why didn't that be me?
Cause it was me.
But it wasn't, it wouldn't have worked because it could be, I don't know, I can just throw some stuff out there, but it could just be my personality and his personality don't mix and it caused, depression on this end or what I had to give didn't match what he needed and vice versa. So when I heard that question, the first thing I can think of is it's not your season, like that's not your season with that person. And you're not meant to fix that person. Like they have to want to fix themselves to be right for you. If they don't want to do that for you, then at the end of the day, what are they going to do for themselves in that sense? So that's one thing I took from it. And the other thing I took from it is that she always want to look for you don't want to have a playmate, you want to have a soulmate. Yeah, soulmate thing. So I was like, shoot, what's the difference between a playmate and soulmate? You play with your soulmate, right? But then at the end, it's like your playmate's just that person who's like, hey, let's go drink, let's go do this, let's do that, and they never have some kind of commitment or connect with you in a sense that that's your soulmate. So like when I just heard that depression thing, I'm like, oh, it was in the book, I knew it was gonna come, and I was gonna use it and share it.
And
This is good.
And even changing the language around fixing. I was like, oh, we were we really got
Ooh, two
Um,
business besties being made right here on Melanin Minds Conference. And we're gonna, real quick, because I don't want to cut you off, but we want to be mindful because we are like 12 and a half hours in. And I know this hour flew by. So I have some good news. We still have a happy hour. Yeah. And we're going to be doing conference recaps. And because we're here in Houston, everybody's invited out. Deniz, owner, co-owner, co-founder of this radio station, our media sponsor, curator, playlist, all that stuff. We're going over to Aurora Radio. I'm a personality over there, broadcaster, and we're going to do conference recap and happy hour. And we're going to answer like,
There's
Four
2
more
more questions. And then I was like, who's married in here? Because this is a married folk
Yeah.
question. Tips for navigating open relationships.
relationships.
Maybe some married people will show up.
yeah.
We can have
So we'll
do download the app or go to the website. You can listen either way and we'll continue that conversation.
allrealradio.com and Google and app stores as well.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely. I want to do final
Okay.
thoughts. So we're going to do final thoughts with everybody. And y'all please start dropping again your links, your Instagrams, your LinkedIn. We want everybody to connect. We'll make sure that when we send out the conference newsletter, we'll connect everybody and make sure that all our panelists and moderators have their information available. But yeah, final thoughts from you.
Well, I mean, she's gonna touch on the fix. We were both on the same vibration with that, which is crazy. But the fixing thing, I'll let her talk about. But yeah, we shouldn't go into anything on fix anybody. But the final thought, this is from the conversation that we had at the radio station the other night, because it came to me while I was brushing my teeth this morning. I was like, you know what? Because y'all were dogging Kanye about the playlist, right? You just said about the playlist, about wondering if he was gonna be on here. And I was like, you know what? This is a mental health conference, and I made this, you know what? We can't be dogging Kanye. You know what?
Nobody was saying we like him. No.
We dogging Kanye. when it's
No, we were
mental
saying we
health.
like him.
Okay, you say what?
I liked Kanye, like, and
Okay,
then
I just
no
wanted to,
shift.
I just wanted to say that, because I was like, wait, I was like, that's not cool to be like dogging him when this is the whole time.
I
So
know,
anyway,
yeah, I know.
so
You see
yeah.
how y'all should be checking me, watch my whole thing. I'm gonna be all live, chakras, sound bowl healing. I'm gonna have y'all watch this work from this conference work.
But yeah, that was it. It was those things, and then just be yourself, love yourself first, because that's my motto: love yourself is better health. And when you love yourself, then you don't take a lot of crap, and that's in relationships. That's just in life in general, and you're more able to present yourself and be your best self in any type of environment, relationship, working, whatever. So yeah, know yourself. It's like really know thyself.
And about the fixing, like, let's change the term around mental health fixing. There's nothing wrong with you. If you're experiencing any type of mental health, anything, any crisis, there is nothing wrong with you. I tell myself that, I tell my clients that you just want to get to a healthier version of yourself. And that is working with your trauma, your triggers, your family, all the historical things. But I want to leave with everyone with go to therapy. We are not scary. We are your homegirls, home guys, boys on the couch and on the Zoom screen now because it's very convenient. So cannot take steps into that healthier version of self until you kind of unpack all of those things. And it's not scary. It's a journey. I see my therapist weekly. Hey girl, hey. Yeah, and it's changed my life. As a therapist, I carry a lot of other people's things. So definitely, if anybody on here does not have a therapist, if you have questions, reach out. I may be able to see some of y'all. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you can't afford therapy, journaling, and it doesn't replace therapy, but journaling is so helpful. Just getting your thoughts out, getting them down, having a safe space to talk to someone, like you said, that you ask if you're okay, like that's super duper important. So journaling. So don't, just because you may not be able to afford a therapist, don't just say, oh, I can't get any help. Like there are ways that you can help yourself to a degree. So journaling, meditating, all of those kind of things is really, really important.
Definitely. And also, if you've been sticking around all day since 9 a.m., you know that we have resources for people that cannot afford therapy. And there's tons of them. We'll be linking that together and everything. And I also know that laws say that a therapist can't tell people that they're your therapist, but you can say that somebody is their therapist. Like if you see your therapist, right? So what up, girl? Yes, like I got my line up here, but mom hold me accountable. Here we go. You see them, these Melanin Minds, these Black women, these Latina women are non-binary, they, he, she, and everybody else. Denise, final thoughts before we hop on our happy hour.
Right.
And I'm drinking.
I'm so thankful that these conversations are happening. I said on the radio the other day that, at the We Got Us work that we were doing, me and LaGina had a conversation about, and I said something that was wrong. I said, we don't talk enough about mental health. And LaGina was like, no, we do though. Let's change that. And if we do live in a world where we feel like that's the reality, then we have to address that. And so I think my final thoughts is like, get to know your tribe. And sometimes you have to break up with, and in terms of relationships, people, not even necessarily just, that man, woman, or whatever non-binary relationship, but any people that you're around, if you're trying to be better, then you have to see it reflected and, know that you can trust that and things like that. And I have an unconditional love for Kanye. I just want to go in on that and say that because we all need that and we all want that. And I think that as we explore mental health, when we can offer that to people, then there's safety, there's trust, and we get reciprocated. And so that's some of my final thoughts.
I love that. All right. Well, that Kanye West conversation will continue tonight because I have a whole bunch of thoughts on it. Thank you so much for being a part of our conference. These are for all our conference goers that are in person as well as our speakers. We'll be sending out stuff to our speakers and panelists throughout the day. And again, y'all be looking out for our post-conference survey. Mel, come on. We don't mean to block y'all. But again, I appreciate you. Thank you. Mel all the way in from LA, took a day off of work, and has been really the backbone behind this. So I appreciate everything. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We did it. Yeah, we did it. So y'all, again, I always say this on my podcast, but it's so accurate. Normalize telling people you love them. Look them in the eyes. Look them in the eyes. Tell people you love them. It doesn't have to be like a whole relationship thing. Like I've been with somebody forever and it's like, when should I tell them I love them? Man, if you see somebody, if you see our people of color walking around, you can tell them you love them, and it doesn't have to be like signed, sealed, and delivered, let's go get married thing. That's not how it works. So normalize telling people you love them. Check in on people. If your gut, your spidey sense tells you to call somebody, call them. Check in on them. make it normal to be vulnerable. As Jasmine said, you can say that, you are insecure. It's okay. And all of those things. We have tons of gems from today. We appreciate everybody. We appreciate everybody that stuck around for all 12 hours. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Mel, you have anything?
Just thank y'all so much for rocking with us, for engaging, for sharing, for absorbing all of the resources that it's really all that we do is for us, for y'all, for all of our experts, for our communities. And we're just really, really grateful for the turnout, for the support. And yeah, we are changing narratives. We are breaking down barriers, destigmatizing mental health and the conversations around it.